Welcome to episode 81 of Fascinating, a Star Trek podcast. Star Trek, the motion picture.
In this week's movie, Kirk must regain control of the Enterprise, get the band back together, and stop an alien ship on course for Earth with massive destructive capabilities. When the ship sends an avatar resembling a deceased crewman to gather information, Kirk and Spock have an opportunity to determine its intentions. But can they prevent it ending life on Earth? Or will they be left in orbit around a dead planet?
Spock, this child is about to wipe out every living thing on Earth. Now, what do you suggest we do? Spank it.
Good evening, Ian. How are you?
I'm not too bad, Gerry. How are you?
I think we are in need of a good spanking. We're a little behind in our schedule.
That's your solution to everything.
Never done me any harm.
So they say. I'm not sure I would agree.
So we told everyone we would be back in January.
It is January.
It is now. I don't think this is going to come out for a few weeks.
No. But it is January.
It is January.
We are back.
Technically, we're right.
We made it.
Just not for public consumption.
In under the bar. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Did you enjoy the film?
I did in parts. I didn't dislike it. I thought it was perhaps a good 20 minutes, maybe half an hour over long.
There was certainly an ambitious effort there to do something cinematic and not just a long episode.
Yeah, you can tell it's been influenced or pushed along by Star Wars, which came out a few years.
Oh, there's some very similar shots. People manning weapons arrays and things like that, long exteriors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And from my extensive movie knowledge, obviously this was the success of Star Wars encouraged the producers that the time would be right to make this movie. There's the influences, not just on the screen, but I suppose in terms of the business side of things.
Yeah, I expect so.
And you could tell, there was a marked difference in terms of the scope, the budget. It was impressive. I mean, I think it's hard to look back now and understand how good or bad the graphics would have been or the special effects. But I think it stands up okay.
I think it holds up fine, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We should say we watched the regular version, not the director's cut of the movie, in case anyone's wondering.
How do you know what I watched?
Well, I'm hoping we watched the same version.
I'm not too sure.
Well, we'll find out shortly.
How long? My movie was about 2 hours 12.
Yeah, around about that.
Okay.
It should be fine. Should we do our social accounts? Because no one will be awake by the end of this.
Including myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
So we're at Trek Podcast still on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, where we like to keep you updated and engage with you. You can also go to astartrekpodcast.com, where we put up a post for each and every show to leave your thoughts and concerns. I'm sure I've missed something, but that'll probably do for now.
Yeah, that's fine. TikTok? Are we on TikTok?
No, we're not on TikTok.
What is TikTok?
Keep making videos if you want to be on TikTok. You can't just do one video and then leave it.
What's Vine?
Vine's deceased.
Is it?
It used to be a video software that Twitter used, I think.
Right. Snapchat?
That's still going, but
is it?
We're not on that either.
Are we not?
No.
Good. Disappearing
messages. Kind of defeats the purpose.
Okay. Yeah.
Shall we get into this movie then?
Let's crack on. A different theme tune. I was expecting Old Faithful, but no.
Even before the theme tune, we've got this overture, theatrical sort of instrumental introduction to the entire film on top of a blank screen.
Yeah. Well, I think you have to. You understand why they're doing it. They're trying to make it bigger. They're trying to make it cinematic, and you do have to change and tweak things so that this isn't just an extended episode.
It was missing the part at the start where the instruments all tune up.
Yeah.
But yes, they're trying to make this something big. And yes, and as you say, the opening credits are with the new theme music, which carries on into The Next Generation.
Does it?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is probably the tune that a lot of people identify with Star Trek.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Didn't recognise it.
There you go. You will now.
Well, I won't. We're not doing The Next Generation.
No, but we've got 5 more movies.
And okay, they use this.
I believe so.
Fine. The score also, maybe mention this just now, I quite liked it, throughout the movie. There was quite an industrial feel to it. A lot of clanking of metals and that type of thing.
Again, it's got a bit Star Warsy.
But I thought it fit well with the plot and the storyline
And
of
the aesthetic as well. Yeah.
machines and that type of thing. So I thought that, yeah, I enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was good. We don't begin, however, in our usual place on the Enterprise. We're on a Klingon ship.
Yeah, in space. 3 ships are travelling through a blue ring, accompanied by tension-building score.
Yes, and we hear them speaking in what must be the Klingon language, although there are subtitles.
Now, we've mentioned this before, but this is how before we started this podcast, this is what Klingon was to me.
Yes, so the look of the Klingons has changed, we should say, from the regular series. So no doubt people were outraged by this, as they are these days when they get slightly redesigned for a new series.
Did it get changed quite a lot, yeah?
No, well, Star Trek Discovery redesigned them somewhat, had them all bald,
Right.
with lumpy heads, and that was outrageous because we've got canon that shows they're actually just brown people.
Oh, I can imagine
In
the
that
nerds
time.
getting really angry.
Oh. But here we are, Gene Roddenberry himself redesigning the Klingons for the first movie.
So was he actively involved in this?
In this one, yeah.
Was he? Wasn't just his name?
No, in the subsequent movies, it's more of a backseat role.
Okay. Now, I must admit, I found this a bit confusing at first. I mean,
The Klingon language, just because you don't speak Klingon.
No, not the Klingon language. I wasn't sure what was going on. I've only watched this movie once.
Yeah.
So I didn't rewatch it before taking notes. We see there's 3 ships and then they fire something and then on the screen you see 3. I wasn't sure what was been showing on their sort of radar monitor screen. And
So my understanding is you've got 3 Klingon ships and they get fired at by something which destroys them.
yes.
Although not yet.
No.
At this point, they are firing photon torpedoes at this sort of luminescent cloud thing.
And then we head over to a space station,
Epsilon 9.
which sends out a communication to the USS Columbia, relaying a message for one of their scouts to rendezvous with another scout at some point or other.
Well, the Columbia is to rendezvous with a scout ship.
Yeah.
And it seems to get the message.
Inside, they pick up audio and visuals of the Klingons engaged in battle.
Yeah, I've no idea how they get the visual footage of the Klingons engaged in battle.
Yeah, that's in the future. That's what you can do that.
Can you?
Oh yeah.
Only when it's convenient.
Yes.
Okay. As
But-
if they're watching it on TV.
Well, we've discussed this before in the series.
Yeah, sometimes you can get it, sometimes you can't.
Yeah. Sometimes you're really close up, as if it's been directed by a TV studio. But anyway, they can't identify who they are fighting, as we see one of them taking a substantial hit.
I think we see the ships destroyed ultimately.
Yeah, ultimately we do, yeah.
And the lieutenant on the station warns that this luminescent cloud thing is heading their way and beyond that to Earth.
Now, we go to, I assumed, Vulcan.
Yes, this is the planet Vulcan where we see Spock and some other Vulcans participating in some kind of ritual and speaking the Vulcan language. Now, there's not as much Vulcan language out there as Klingon language.
Is there not?
No.
But do some nerds, have they?
No, there's not. I don't think there's even a full lexicon on Vulcan.
No? Some they must have it.
No, I don't think so. I don't think it's been written.
Yeah, some nerds written it.
No.
For sure.
No.
He gets a little dictionary of.
It's more graphic designers that do these sort of crazy characters for Vulcan. It's not a spoken language
Okay.
in the series. It's not really. I'm not sure about Star Trek Enterprise because I've not watched that as much, but the Klingon stuff gets picked up quite a lot. There's a Klingon dictionary you can buy now. I think on Duolingo you can learn Klingon.
Yeah.
It's a
Not
full,
doing themselves any favours with
a
that.
full language
Yeah.
that you can communicate in.
I
but
bet,
not
I bet
so
the,
much for Vulcan.
I bet the girls love it.
Oh, the ones who learn Klingon do.
Yeah, no doubt. Spock is kneeling in a prayer-like pose. Now, we should say, what did you make of the setting? What did you make of Vulcan? Did it look quite...
So it looked to me in keeping with what we've already seen in Amok Time, the sort of warm planet.
but not very
dusty.
hospitable.
Not that hospitable, no.
It was surrounded by erupting volcanoes and lava, I think.
Well, I think he's gone to an extreme part of the
Right.
planet for this isolation ritual called, Culinara?
Is that
Culinar?
Yeah, an industrial noise rings out and he stands, raises his head before walking over to 3 people who've appeared between what looks like the legs of a giant statue.
Could well be.
Yeah.
Apparently this is a ritual through which all emotion is renounced and shed, and Spock is being assessed by these people.
He kneels before the woman, she's the leader.
Yeah,
2
she goes
chaps
to
on either
the-
side and a
yes.
woman. And she goes to place some sort of medal necklace on him, but he raises his hand to prevent this. And so she places her hand on his face and continues to speak.
Yeah, I think she may be doing a mind meld with him here.
You think?
Yes.
Okay.
And she learns that he's being drawn out to space and must search elsewhere for his answer, bidding him long life and prosperity as he does so.
Yeah, they three, they turn and leave him as he picks up the object in his hand.
Indeed. And then we head to what I believe is Starfleet headquarters.
Looks like it, yeah. We have a shot of a craft passing what looks like the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco.
Yes, we get the exterior shot. Yeah, and I think it might say on the screen the stardate. I can't remember if it says it or if someone says it.
Don't think so, yeah.
Stardate 7410.2.
Yeah, and this craft enters HQ, which looks to be on Earth, and it resembles a busy train station.
It does. We see Kirk speak to a Vulcan officer called Sonox. This is the new Spock, we assume.
Yes.
He refers to Kirk, though, as Admiral, and refers to a Captain Decker.
Yeah.
Anyhow, Kirk is surprised that Sonak is still on the station so close to launch.
Why is that?
Because he wants him on board in 12 hours' time. And Sonak's surprised by this because he's not expecting Kirk to be involved in this mission at all.
No.
He thinks that Captain Decker's in charge.
Yeah, we'll find out about Decker shortly. And I'm sure we'll have things to say about this character.
No doubt. Kirk says to Sonak at this point that he intends to be on that ship, but he has an important meeting with Admiral Nogura coming up.
We now go to, I think they call it an orbit office.
Yes, we're now, I think, post this meeting with Nogura, and Scotty greets Kirk and expresses dismay at new orders he's received to have the Enterprise ready to go in 12 hours.
Yeah, although he says he's been working on it for 18 months.
Yeah, and they're going to shave 8 hours off his departure time.
Sure, but if you've been working on it 18 months, the 8 hours shouldn't make any difference. You shouldn't. If you've been given it 18 months to do something, it's not, yeah, but you told me I can't take 8 hours. You should be finished probably a few weeks ago.
Yeah, he's maybe been dragging it out.
Yeah. I thought there were some nice shots of the comings and goings of the orbit office.
Yeah, it was good. It gave the impression of someone that was active and busy.
Definitely.
We infer from what's said here that Kirk has got what he wanted and he's going to be on board the ship when it leaves.
So he tells Scotty to take him onto the ship, and they get into a travel pod to go there.
They do. This is my favourite shot of the movie because you get an external of this pod, which is 3D relative to the Enterprise, but very clearly a 2D image of Kirk and Scotty in the window.
Do you know what that reminded me of?
What was that?
Columbo.
Okay.
His alibi was the speed camera.
Yes, Murder of a Rock Star?
Yeah, Dabney Coleman. And he got his assistant to put a photograph of his face as a mask to get caught in the speed camera, yeah.
Same idea.
Mm-hmm.
Except here I don't think it's deliberate.
No. In any case, Scotty is still mumbling away to himself, moaning about the time constraint, until Kirk reveals exactly why he is there.
The crew haven't had near enough transition time with all the new equipment. And the engines are not even tested at warp power. And an untried captain.
2.5 years as Chief of Starfleet Operations may have made me a little stale, but I wouldn't exactly consider myself untried. They gave her back to me, Scotty.
Gave her back, sir? I doubt it was that easy with Nagura.
You're right.
Well, any man who could manage such a feat, I would not dare disappoint. She'll launch on time, sir, and she'll be ready.
So just before that, Kirk had explained to Scotty that this alien object with unbelievable destructive power is only 3 days away, and the Enterprise is the only starship in interception range.
Mm-hmm. Also, 2.5 years.
Well, you've also got the last 2 years of his 5-year mission to add on to that as well.
Okay, slightly better.
Yeah, 4.5 years since we last saw him.
And in real life, how
10.
long? 10, yeah. 10. Twice as long.
Can't quite get away with it, I don't think.
No. We have some nice exterior shots, which is effectively 5 minutes of Enterprise porn.
That's what I've written, starship porn.
Yeah.
We see every inch of the refurbished Enterprise.
It's impressive.
It's very nicely shot.
Very nicely shot, yeah. Space scaffolding,
especially
all around
in the
it.
sort of pre-CGI days.
Yeah.
It'll all be models.
Of course, yeah. work is still being carried out, as we know it's not quite ready.
No. But Kirk and Scotty arrive at the Enterprise and Kirk thanks his chief engineer for his assistance.
And did we mention he's been promoted as well, yeah? He's Commander Scotty now.
Yeah, his rank is higher, but I think he's still chief engineer. I don't think he's got another position. Yeah, and there's an ensign there who offers to show Kirk where to go, but he insists that he knows his way around.
Well, sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
He gets in the turbo lift.
Heads to the bridge.
Yeah, and closes his eyes as he braces himself for his arrival back at his old position.
Up on the bridge, we hear some bickering in the background as Kirk arrives.
It's a chaotic scene with many people working and shouting, and they're not going particularly well, I don't think, or they're under a bit of pressure.
They certainly are. Uhura, however, is pleased to see Kirk and addresses him as Captain.
Yes.
She notes that his transfer of command orders just came through, and Sulu is also pleased to see him in what must have been a jarring scene for George Takei to film.
No doubt. Chekhov, he's there as well.
Kirk acknowledges and appreciates their welcome and regrets the circumstances, and he tells Uhura, keep a channel open to Epsilon 9, which is monitoring this intruder.
She tells him that Captain Decker is in engineering, so that the mood's slightly changed, but doesn't yet know about the change of leadership.
No.
Now, why would he not have been informed?
It's just come through. She's literally just had the order. This is all happening in real time.
But Kirk knows about this already. He knows he's in charge, so that the decision has been made.
Yes, and he's come straight from that meeting with Nagura to the Enterprise, and she's also had to do paperwork or whatever it is, and then transmitted this order across to Uhura.
Yeah, I don't think this is the best way to handle it.
No, Decker should have been informed well.
Yeah, the two of them should have been brought into a meeting. But is it what's her name? Nagura?
Admiral Nagura, yeah.
Right, Nagura should have sat down and explained. You shouldn't have the person who's taking your job being the one to...
You're getting demoted.
Demoted, yeah. It's not a great position to be in.
No.
Anyway, so after telling Chekhov to bring the crew to the recreation deck, the rec deck...
At 4 a.m.
4 a.m, yeah. A little later, as he's going to show them what they face, he heads down to break this news personally to the soon-to-be demoted captain.
And once he's gone, we hear Sulu remark that he wanted the ship back and he's got it. Bit sinister.
Yeah. In engineering, we see an impressive, I think it's a power shaft they call it, in the centre of the room, as Decker and Scotty work on a piece of malfunctioning equipment.
Decker is pleased to see Kirk, who he thinks has come for a send-off.
Until he is invited away from an uncomfortable Scotty to be brought up to speed.
He's dismayed to learn that he's being temporarily demoted to commander and being kept on as Kirk's executive officer due to his experience with this refitted ship.
Yeah.
Kirk explains that the reasons for the change are his experience on his recent 5-year mission, his familiarity with the crew and the Enterprise, and his record of dealing with unknowns like this.
But Decker, he points out that this ship, the Enterprise, is effectively a new vehicle.
Yeah, it's been so comprehensively refitted. It's like a new ship.
Kirk, he tries to apologise, or he does apologise, but Decker doesn't accept it and reminds him about how envious he admitted he was when he got the position, and now he finally has it. So he obviously thinks that this has been a concerted or a deliberate effort.
Ongoing. Yeah.
By Kirk to wrestle control back off the
Decker's a little bit insubordinate here. He says he doesn't believe that Kirk's sorry and has essentially stolen his command, and Kirk drops the niceties at this point, telling him to report to the bridge.
At this point, Scotty looks at Kirk, and it looks like they might be about to talk about what just happened, but don't have the time, as there is a transporter malfunction, just as Sonic and another... Is it Sonic? Sonic the Hedgehog? Sonic the Hedgehog and another person are attempting to come on board.
Yes, so they head to the transporter room where we see Yeoman Rand.
Now, I don't want to be mean, but I had to take a couple of double takes here. Shatner and the rest are all obviously who they are. But I looked at Rand, and it may be, in fairness, it may be because we've not seen her for such a long time.
Yeah.
But I did think, is that Rand? Oh, she's not... Time's not been as kind to her.
I think she'd had a rough few years.
Yeah.
In real life.
Sure, yeah.
The character we haven't seen for whatever it is, an extra 3 years on top of however long Kirk was away for. She, however, now is an officer and operating the transporters.
They do what they can to prevent a disaster, but to no avail, as we see the form of the arrivals appear before disappearing again, and then Starfleet confirm that they arrived back with them in a mess, and
Bit mangled.
Yeah, died almost immediately.
It's unfortunate for Sonak.
I was going to say, it's good to see Kirk losing crew as per usual within a few minutes of being on the Enterprise. This is back in the swing of things, Kirk?
That's it. Seconds of being in charge.
We've lost someone.
He asks to have his condolences passed to the families and says that Sonax can be contacted through the Vulcan embassy and reassures Rand it was not her fault.
Of course, she's probably thinking,
I didn't think it was my fault.
oh yeah, why are you saying that? Is it my fault? You're a jinx.
Yeah.
He then exits into the corridor with a look of justifiable self-doubt about him. And I think this is maybe the first time we've seen this in the movie. And it's something that's worth noting and praising. They don't play Kirk as some infallible superhero here. There are many times, and we'll come across the next one pretty quickly, where he is shown to be weak and not necessarily making the best decisions.
Yeah, and not being the one with the answer.
Yeah.
Which is quite a bold step to take with your principal character.
I think so. But it was good to see.
Effective.
It was.
In the corridor, he speaks to Decker about replacing Sonak with another Vulcan, with them all being interchangeable.
But we also should say, even at this point, when he gets out, he gets a bit lost. He doesn't know where he's going.
That's true. Yeah.
He's a bit of a doddery old man about him.
A little bit. Yeah, so he wants another Vulcan on account of how they're interchangeable. But apparently there are no Vulcans, nor any other officers of any other species available who are rated on this design. So Kirk says that Decker is, and he can double as the science officer.
On the recreation deck, the crew watch in horror a film of the destruction caused by this cloud on the Klingon ship.
The crew, most of whom are non-union extras played by fans of the TV show.
Now, I'm not sure if you've got this in the trivia. There was a big chap with, he looked like the Elephant Man.
Okay.
Big head. And that's Van Sant. That's Stephen Van Sant's brother.
Okay.
Who is in The Sopranos, but for me, for a lot of people, he is Bruce Springsteen's long-time guitarist in the East Street.
That's just how he looks.
That's just no, that's not him.
Okay.
It's his brother is.
That's how his brother looks.
Right, let's move on.
Okay. Kirk is finishing his explanation about this threat that's only 53.4 hours away from Earth, and the Enterprise is the only thing in its way. They're
also working on the assumption that there is a vessel at the heart of it. That's quite a leap.
Well, it's moving.
Yeah, but clouds move.
Yeah, that's true. Their orders are to intercept, investigate, and take whatever action is necessary / possible.
Yeah, they're hoping there's going to be a life form that can be reasoned with. But at this, they get more bad news as Epsilon 9 interrupt with a video message.
Put it on viewer.
On viewer, sir.
Enterprise. The cloud is definitely a power field of some kind. Measures... My God. Over 82 AUs in diameter. Must be something incredible inside there generating it. We're transmitting lingo code friendship messages on all frequencies. No response.
I have a null reading at the center of the cloud.
Definitely something inside there, but all scans are being reflected back.
Some kind of power surge.
Receiving an odd pattern now.
Enterprise, they could be mistaking our scans as a hostile act.
Seem to be reacting to our scans.
Deflectors, emergency flight. We are under attack.
External view.
They obviously end it the same way as the Klingons did. I thought that reminded me a little bit of the footage of the people watching the Challenger disaster.
Yeah, a little bit.
You know?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I should say that the reference there to 82 AUs is a error. It should be 2 AUs, I think, something like that.
All right.
82 would be ridiculous.
Would it?
Yeah.
Okay. A subdued but stoic Kirk simply informs them that the pre-launch countdown will start in 40 minutes and he leaves.
Up on the bridge, Uhura reports that the transporters are fixed and Sulu says the dock signals are clear.
And they're waiting for the replacement crew members.
Yes, Uhura says that Navigator Ilea is aboard and on her way to the bridge. She is a Deltan.
Now, this causes Decker to look up and reveal that he clearly knows who this person is.
Yes, he explains that he was previously stationed on Delta, but there's something not quite right between them.
At this point, she enters with striking features, including a bald pate, and smiles as she is greeted by Decker, who is I think, a little embarrassed when she realises that he has been demoted.
Indeed. Kirk notes that he has confidence in both of them before Ilia bizarrely states that her oath of celibacy is on record. And my note here, which I think might be similar to what you said to me earlier, perhaps she's heard about Kirk.
Yes, that's what I wrote. She obviously is wise to his reputation and just making it clear right from the outset. I know you're always trying to fire into any females around you. It's not happening.
Yes. I completely forgot that was what I'd written when you told me earlier on that you were thinking that. She starts work as Uhura reports that the last 6 crew members are ready, but one of them is causing some problems about beaming up.
And so Kirk sets off to the transporter room to deal with him, or it, himself.
Yes, and there he orders that the 6th crewman be beamed up, with the other 5 having already arrived.
He does, and we see a bearded and medallioned McCoy materialise, who has not lost his cantankerous nature as he berates Kirk for forcing him to join on a technicality invoked by Kirk himself.
I'm surprised he's not holding a mint julep.
Yes.
He looks like he's just been brought in off the beach.
He looked good with the beard and what have you.
He should have kept that.
Yeah, he should have, yeah.
Yes, so he originally thinks it's Nagura that's brought him in, but it quickly realises it was Kirk.
However, he quickly relents and takes the proffered hand when Kirk passionately insists that he needs him personally.
Yeah. He notes, however, that Nurse Chapel is now an MD, so he needs an actual nurse, not a doctor who's going to argue everything with him.
Yeah, he wants someone who can boss around.
And he's concerned that the engineers might have redesigned sickbay because they just like changing things.
On the bridge.
Well, before that, we get another lengthy external shot.
Do we?
Of the Enterprise in space dock.
Yeah.
Ready to go.
Again, looking good.
Yeah.
On the bridge, with a mix of excitement and apprehension, Kirk tells Sulu to use thrusters to move them off. And we see another impressive image of the Enterprise freeing itself into space.
Yes, Scotty reports that impulse power is available, and Kirk orders them to go to half of Warp 1.
Yeah, and then they pass through a number of planets. I mean,
well, they're leaving the solar system.
Is that our solar? Is that
Jupiter?
Is that what they are? Yeah, okay, fine. Pretty quick.
Yeah. We then get a captain's log.
74:12.6.
1.8 hours since launch. And in order to intercept the intruder at the earliest time, they have to risk engaging warp drive before leaving the solar system.
Now, does the log date, does that make sense? In terms of 5 years or 4.5 years after when it was?
I'm not entirely sure.
Okay. Didn't do your research now?
Well, I think they mess around with these things. They change them to a different format altogether.
Always your excuse.
In the future.
When I ask this question. Right.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about star dates.
Okay. However, Decker states that Warp 7 will get them to the point in the interception point in 21 hours after they leave.
I think it's 20.1 hours. You're giving them an extra hour.
Well, thereabouts. After they leave the solar system. A fact that Ilia confirms with a smile.
McCoy's shown up at this point. And
Quite
Kirk,
grumpy, yeah.
Yeah, Kirk asks whether he's satisfied with the medical facilities. He says no, too many computers.
Yeah, okay, understandable.
Yeah.
It's weird, but you think at this point in the future, see, older people.
Yeah, you would have grown up with computers.
Yeah, I mean, these days, you get people of, say, in their 60s or 70s just now who never had to use them, moaning about technology. But if you're a spaceman.
He's an old country doctor.
You're a spaceman who's went on all these missions on a starship, a spaceship. Yeah. You shouldn't really be complaining about computers. Yeah, it's technology. Just give me leeches.
Anyhow, Decker notes that while the program is set for standard warp entry, he recommends additional simulation study.
Of course, Kirk claims there's no time for this nonsense.
Yeah. No,
health and safety testing. What are you talking about?
Gone mad. He tells engineering to stand by for warp, and we hear Scotty reiterate this request for further simulation.
Yeah, I think both him and McCoy are not particularly happy with Kirk's gung-ho attitude.
Well, McCoy tells him that people on board know their jobs and stop pushing them.
Yeah. In any case, Sulu accelerates to warp 1, and Kirk turns around to...
No, before that, we've got a wee bit of a time skip because Scotty reports that they've done some simulation tests. So he obviously has backed down and allowed this.
Okay, fair enough.
But the results are borderline and he can't guarantee that the engines will work.
No.
But nevertheless, Kirk orders warp 1, as you say.
He then turns around to begin to chastise the impertinent Decker, but disaster strikes.
Yeah, they are forming their own wormhole somehow. And Uhura says subspace frequencies are jammed, while Sulu reports that he has no response from the helm.
Time appears to slow down inside the Enterprise as they try to get themselves out, and it looks like they could all be doomed thanks to Kirk's traditional terrible decision-making.
Yes, Ilia reports a small object in the wormhole with them, so Kirk raises the shields.
Decker then overrules another one of Kirk's terrible choices.
Yes, I think they see this asteroid, which is the small object, and Kirk wants to shoot it down with phasers.
But what does Decker say or do?
Decker says, no, and then sends torpedoes out instead. Chekhov does shoot it with torpedoes, and they get out of the distortion.
With seconds to spare.
Sulu reports that helm control is restored, and at Decker's request, Ilia calculates the new time to intercept.
Yeah. Fortunately as well, there's been no damage or casualties apart from McCoy's wits.
As in, frightened out of.
Yeah.
Decker calls engineering for a report, but Kirk is a bit sheepish.
Yeah.
Down in engineering, we see Scotty asking for a moment to pull themselves together, while Kirk tells him they need warp drive back ASAP, but Scotty says the same thing will just happen again, unless they get time to fix the engine imbalance.
But again, Kirk is stubborn and says that they have a deadline to meet before telling Decker he wants to see him in his quarters. So we're up in Kirk's quarters.
McCoy has insisted on joining them.
It's a bit of a presumption, isn't it? You're about to dress down another colleague.
Yeah.
I'll tag along.
Well, I think he's taking advantage of his privileges as Kirk's friend.
Sure.
So Kirk wants an explanation.
Oh, well, before that, I mean, we should say these are plush new digs.
Quite they're very nice,
yeah,
but they've got a see-through wall.
Yeah, but I think you can press that button. It's like...
Messed it up.
Messed it up, yeah. Must be.
Yes, Kirk demands an explanation for Decker as to why he countermanded his phaser order.
He does, however, concede that he acted correctly when he hears that if he hadn't, they would all have been killed.
Yeah, they say the phasers are now boosted by running them through the engines. That's a stupid idea.
Yeah.
Why would you tie two critical systems together?
You shouldn't do that.
No, that's insane. That's probably Decker's fault.
No doubt.
Anyway, Kirk does acknowledge that Decker's actions were therefore correct, but Decker also apologises for embarrassing Kirk.
Yeah, and in fairness, the gracious Kirk does admit that he saved the Enterprise. But at this point, he can't just let it lie. That the pompous Decker states that, yeah, he knows he did.
Yeah, Kirk yells at him now, tells him to stop competing.
And Decker asks to speak freely. And when he does, he pulls no punches.
Yes, he tells Kirk that he hasn't been in space for 2.5 years and that, in combination with his unfamiliarity with the refit, he is jeopardising the mission.
I would agree with that, and I would also blame Starfleet.
Yeah, they've gone along with this.
Yeah, they've sanctioned this crazy decision.
Kirk, however, takes this fairly well, asks Decker to nursemaid him through these initial teething difficulties, to which Decker agrees before leaving, and McCoy notes that Decker probably had a point. But Kirk acknowledged he had a point, he backed down and agreed with everything.
Yeah, I thought it was a bit, yeah.
So McCoy was just there to sneer a wee bit, I think.
Uh-huh.
I think he was maybe concerned that Kirk might not take it well.
Yeah, true. In the corridor, Decker bumps into Ilia.
Exposition.
Yep, and we discover that he left Delta 4 without saying goodbye to her, but she accepts his excuse that it would have been too hard for both of them before walking off as her emotions start to get the better of her, apparently. It looks like.
Meanwhile, back in Kirk's quarters, McCoy hasn't let things lie quite yet.
Make your point, Doctor.
The point, Captain, is that it's you who's competing. You ram getting this command down Starfleet's throat. You've used this emergency to get the Enterprise back.
And I intend to keep her? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. It's an obsession. An obsession that can blind you to far more immediate and critical responsibilities. Your reaction to Decker is an example, Jim.
Bridge to Captain.
Viewer on.
Signal from a Federation-registered long-range shuttle, sir. She wishes to come alongside and lock on.
For what purpose?
My security scan shows it has a Grade 1 priority, Captain. Non-belligerency confirmed. I suspect it is a courier of some kind.
Very well, Mr. Chekhov. See to it. Viewer off. Your opinion has been noted. Anything further?
That depends on you.
I quite like that phrase that Chekhov used. Non-belligerency.
We then have an exterior shot of this courier craft arriving, and we go to the hatch door.
The hangar, yes, where Chekhov is thrilled to see who the visitor is.
Who is it?
Spock! Yeah!
And he's now quite kempt, as opposed to unkempt, or Martin kempt.
Well, indeed.
However, he has no time for chit-chat and walks off after being granted permission to board.
Yeah, he's not happy to see Chekhov. He doesn't express it anyway.
Oh.
Up on the bridge, the entire bridge crew and indeed Kirk are shocked and pleased to see Spock, who, with all due respect to Decker, offers his services as science officer.
But as with Chekhov, Spock shows no emotion nor pleasantries. He's a bit of a dick.
Dr. Chapel shows up. She's also thrilled to see Spock.
Well, she's like, oh.
As is McCoy.
Yeah.
And Uhura tells Spock that they all feel this way, but he just asks for permission to get to work.
Yeah, he asks for Decker's science officer's seat and explains that he is aware of the issues with the engines and he is here to offer his services as science officer.
Indeed.
Decker's no problem with this.
Yeah, he's already got enough jobs to do.
Yeah, he's like, thank you, cheers.
And Kirk wanted a Vulcan for the role.
Yeah. And again, they're all sort of pleased to see him. I think McCoy was even sort of rubbing his hands in delight at his old friend arriving. But he is, he's a bit of an arse again, and simply says that he's going to engineering to discuss some of the problems, and he leaves them all looking rather puzzled.
Yeah, he's particularly unemotional and unresponsive to his former friends.
Captain's log 7413.4.
Thanks to Spock arriving in such a timely manner, the engines are rebalanced and they have full warp capacity.
Which means that they can intercept while the cloud is about a day from Earth.
Yes, that gives them a bit of a buffer.
On the bridge, Warp 7 is successfully reached as the crew look on quite nervously, understandably.
We go into the officer's lounge, which I assume is new with the refit, because we've not seen that before. Spock joins Kirk and McCoy and exchanges some traditional barbs with the Doctor.
Yeah, at first he declines to sit down.
For quite some time, to Kirk's irritation. But anyway, Kirk intervenes, trying to get some backstory. He says the last they heard, Spock was over on Vulcan and McCoy thought he was committing to the Colinar, or the Colonier, as he calls it, discipline, which Spock corrects him on.
Yeah, what is this Colinar?
Yes, so Spock corrects McCoy in the pronunciation and says, and McCoy says that his recollection is it was supposed to purge all remaining emotion, but Kirk notes that Spock must have broken that discipline to rejoin them.
Mm-hmm. An exasperated Kirk then begs him to sit down, which he does, and goes on to explain that on Vulcan, he sensed the most powerful force that he has ever encountered and believes it was coming from the cloud and may hold the answers that he is personally seeking.
McCoy notes that therefore it's lucky they were headed this way.
Yeah, it's quite snarky.
Yeah, Spock wouldn't have come if they hadn't been going to this cloud, but Kirk insists that they need Spock, who notes therefore that his presence is to their mutual advantage. Basically, Spock's not here to help them, he wants them to help him.
Yeah, it's disappointing. I mean, it's not the response they wanted to hear.
No, but they'll take it. Kirk asks him, though, to report any thought patterns he senses, whether personal or otherwise, which Spock agrees to before leaving.
McCoy then asks Kirk how they can be sure that Spock won't put his own personal interests ahead of theirs. I wasn't sure that was the... Why would you think that? This is an old friend of yours. I'm not sure you would...
Well, yeah,
it's not a stranger.
His reasons for coming aboard are personal. He's not come to help them with the mission, so McCoy's cynical. But Kirk doesn't believe Spock would do that, and it's quick that they're working towards the same target.
Yeah. A communication then comes through informing that visual contact with the cloud has been revised to less than 4 minutes.
But by the time Kirk gets up to the bridge, the red alert klaxon is sounding.
Yeah, they have the cloud on the main viewing screen.
Maximum magnification.
And they are being scanned by this entity.
Yes, Kirk says not to respond in kind after what they saw happened to Epsilon 9.
Yeah, it could be misinterpreted as an act of aggression.
Spock reports that the scans are coming from the centre of the cloud, but that the energy type is unfamiliar. As usual with Spock, no answers.
And Uhura is receiving...
As usual, no response.
No response from the French. Nothing, Captain, it's engaged.
Nothing ever changes.
That's the thing, it might be worthwhile discussing briefly just now. This was a very sort of Kirk and Spock heavy movie. You had the familiar faces, but Chekhov, Uhura, McCoy, and Sulu and Scott had done nothing really.
Same as the series.
Yeah, McCoy sometimes had more into
sometimes.
it.
Yeah. But then these are the guys that are getting the big money. They have to feature them.
That's true.
That's who the audience want.
Yep.
Chekhov wants them to go to battle stations, but Kirk says that would be provocative. Decker recommends raising their shields, and Kirk refuses for the same reason.
Spock says he thinks there is an object at the centre of the cloud, as Kirk and Decker avoid a full-blown argument when Decker points out that he's only highlighting options. So he does try and diffuse it.
Yeah. Spock reports that the cloud is composed of an energy field with 12th power, which stuns Sulu. I don't know what it means.
No.
I assume it means a lot.
Stunning, obviously, yeah, it's pretty powerful. Ilia is then told to bring them parallel to the centre of this cloud.
Yeah, they have to follow a conic flight path to the centre and then line up just above whatever's in the middle.
Okay. Decker is flabbergasted at the power the entity generates as a dazed Spock stands and claims that he senses puzzlement and that they have been contacted before but have not replied.
Kirk is befuddled. He doesn't understand what they mean by contacted.
But before they can discuss it further, an alarm rings out and deflectors are deployed just before a shot of plasma energy strikes them. I think it's plasma energy. I don't know what it is. Something or other.
It's some kind of energy bolt. Scotty reports that systems are overloading and Chekhov is zapped as he tries to use his console.
Yeah, it takes a nasty one to the hand, the arm.
I think in the
Burnt
first
off.
draft he was killed, but they didn't go ahead with that.
It would have been good if he'd lost an arm at least.
Yeah.
Or a hand. Yeah, just
Or his
put an
hair.
arm. Yeah. yeah.
I'd save them
That ship
wig
has
money.
sailed.
Scotty calls to report that they can't keep full shields on. Their power's down 70%. That's
Yeah.
quite a lot.
Yeah.
It's like almost 7/10.
Spock has an update on the previous communication from the cloud. Apparently, their old technology was too primitive to receive this message, but Spock is going to reprogram it.
Yes, meanwhile, Chapel arrives and Uhura directs her to Chekhov with Ilia chipping in to say she can stop his pain.
But there is another attack coming towards them, and they won't be able to defend it.
No, so Kirk urges Spock to transmit his message that he's been working on. And with fewer than 10 seconds to impact, the weapon bolt or the energy dissipates. So Kirk assumes that their messages have been received and understood. Underspooned, which Spock thinks is a logical assumption. Certainly wasn't overspooned.
Yeah. Kirk asks Spock what they do next. What does he recommend?
That they proceed into the cloud.
However, Decker suggests caution and thinks that moving forward into it is an unwarranted gamble, and I think you can side with him on this one.
Well, Kirk asks him how to define unwarranted and orders them in anyway. And we see a nice external shot of the Enterprise entering the cloud.
Yeah, they watch and wonder at this.
and again now we get Spock with some useless readings and Uhura unable to contact anybody.
They eventually get towards the centre, which looks to be emitting bright flashes of light and affects their own instrumentation.
Yes, Kirk asks for magnification to be reduced, but that's already been done.
And then he tells Uhura to send an image of the entity to Starfleet, but she is unable to do this, as any transmission out of the cloud has been reflected back in.
Not ideal.
No.
Kirk has Sulu enter a parallel course over the object just 500 metres away, working out to 100 kilometres.
We then have an external shot as they progress further, and we begin to get an understanding of the magnitude of this cloud, with the Enterprise appearing as a mere speck.
Indeed. We hear the klaxon once again for Red Alert, and Spock notes a probe from the cloud is now physically aboard the Enterprise.
So they hold position, they stop moving. And this beam, this probe, appears to pierce through the ship and move around, obviously scanning.
Yes, it then starts to read their computer records, which leads to Spock destroying his own console to protect it, I presume.
Yeah, he Hulk smashes it. I'm not sure that's how. I'm not sure the actual keyboard is where all your data is stored for a start.
Yeah, it's not the access point, but and then the probe kills Ilia.
And also, he gets a blast to the gut freeze.
Spock does, yes.
The trouble, which is warranted.
Both Ilia now dead and the probe disappear.
We don't know that, do we?
She's been zapped. It looks
she
pretty
disappears.
fatal.
Yeah.
And Decker's now angry that this is what he would call unwarranted.
Yeah, to which a shocked Kirk has no answer. I mean, he can't really argue the point here, but
yeah, but Decker's overreacting because he fancied the woman that's been killed.
Well, he did. Obviously, that's true. However, yeah, one of his friends has been murdered or has been killed by Kirk's decision making. So he's right to feel a bit aggrieved.
But they might all have been killed if he hadn't done this. It was shooting everything easily. They were about to be destroyed.
Anyway, another emergency alert goes off, and Decker seems to have, for the moment, taken control and is making decisions.
Yeah, Spock notes they've been caught in a tractor beam, and Kirk calls for a new Ilea.
Yes. Down in engineering, Scotty tells them that if they don't break free in 15 seconds, they're going to burn up. But Spock calmly tells them it is impossible. So Kirk orders Scotty to disengage.
Yes, DeFalco arrives on the bridge and is pointed to Ilea's station by Decker. And after ordering the newcomer to disengage the engine navigation relays, Scotty is told by Kirk that the drive systems should be free, whatever that means. Uhura reports she is ready to launch a drone with the ship's record, but Decker recommends holding off due to being caught in the tractor beam. He recommends a short phaser strike to the beam, but Spock thinks that resistance would be futile. Decker's finding it hard to understand why Spock's taking that approach.
Yeah.
Another nice external shot as Enterprise moves in this tractor beam, and Decker tries to figure out why they've been allowed to enter, as they could easily have been destroyed outside the cloud.
And at this point, Spock replies that it is insatiable curiosity. Again, he's just...
But he's got his mind connected to this thing.
Fair enough. And things get more alarming as Uhura reveals the aperture is closing. They're trapped inside this now.
Yes, and the tractor beam is released, and Kirk has the viewer show them what is ahead. He's now happy to scan.
Yeah, but the scans are useless.
They are a bit useless, but at least they didn't get killed for it.
In front of them is a closed orifice. Oh, error.
Spock has an opinion about this closed orifice.
What's that?
It leads to another chamber.
Which is undoubtedly part of the cloud's inner mechanism. Undoubtedly, really.
Undoubtedly.
Yeah.
The computer, however, at this point reports an intruder alert, which interrupts their conversation. Chekhov reports it's on deck 5, and Kirk heads there with a security team and Spock giving Decker the con.
It's in her in Ilia's quarters, isn't it?
Yes, they get there where she's taking a shower.
Fortunate.
Gratuitous.
Yeah, they reach the location of the intruder, and behind the screen we see the naked form of Ilia with a red glowing object inserted into her throat.
Yes. We wonder whether she may have survived in some way, but the question is immediately answered when she refers to Kirk as the Kirk unit.
Yeah, but he opens the screen, obviously not looking to protect her modesty.
Oh, there you go.
And she starts speaking in a somewhat computerised voice, claiming they will assist her and that she has been programmed by V'ger to observe and record the carbon-based creatures who are infesting the Enterprise.
McCoy is baffled.
Well, you would be.
And Kirk has a question.
The screen closes again for a moment, and when she reappears, she's now clad in an extremely short dress with a large collar. And McCoy, he's entered at this point and is told by Kirk to use his tricorder, and he himself asks her who V'ger is.
V'ger is that which programmed me.
Is V'ger the name of the captain of the alien vessel?
Jim, this is a mechanism.
A probe, Captain. No data sensor or transceiver combination, recording everything we say and do.
Where is Lieutenant Ilia?
That unit no longer functions. I've been given its form to more readily communicate with the carbon-based units infesting Enterprise.
Carbon-based units?
Humans, Ensign Perez. Us.
Why does V'ger travel to the third planet of the solar system directly ahead?
To find the Creator.
Find the Creator? What does V'ger want with the Creator?
To join with him.
To join with the Creator. How?
V'ger and the Creator will become one.
And who is the Creator?
The Creator is that which created V'ger.
Who is V'ger?
V'ger is that which seeks the Creator. I'm ready to commence my observations.
Doctor, a thorough examination of this probe might provide some insight into those who manufactured it and how to deal with them.
A little exchange in there reminded me of Fletch.
Did it?
Yep.
What part?
There's a part where Fletch is bluffing, trying to get some information, and he asks someone asks who he is, and he says, "Oh, I'm Frida's boss." And he says, "Who's Frida?" He says, "My secretary," and moves off.
Okay. Ilea probe resists the attempts to gain insight into her manufacturer until she's assured that this is normal carbon-based behaviour.
Yeah, she seems quite easily manipulated.
So far.
A little bit like, and there's a few times here where I think Kirk does to use a Star Trek, a Star Wars reference. I wouldn't have thought about doing this, but there's a sort of Obi-Wan where he just tells her to do this is what you should do. Oh, yeah, okay, and yeah. And she accepts it and moves off without question. Anyway, sickbay, is that where we go next?
It's an examination room of some kind. McCoy's concluding his work, noting, along with Chapel, that every bodily function is mechanically replicated.
Yeah, she's a sophisticated android with very realistic human functions. In fact, they're replicas of Ilea's.
Yes. And we then get an odd moment where Decker shows up and the Ilea probe calls him Decker.
So this is the first time I've noted sex robot alert. We couldn't even get into the first movie without the possibility of
our own klaxon is going off now. Yeah.
If someone is about to bang a robot.
Spock, being highly attuned to these things, notices before the men head out to the corridor.
Yes, where Spock advises that the Ilea probe may be the best way to access the aliens.
Yeah, Decker doesn't know it's a probe. He has to be told that it's not Ilea, she's dead.
But that it's a duplication of her, and she has real memory patterns that may still exist.
Yes, and Kirk adds that this could include her loyalties, her sense of duty, and her friendships, and Spock notes that Decker used to bone her.
Yeah, so they can exploit this.
Indeed. But Decker's completely flipped now. He now sees this probe as the killer of the real Ilea.
Yes, but is persuaded when Kirk reminds him of what is at stake.
Of course. At this, we get a good wall smashing moment.
It's like something from the Terminator, isn't it? Yeah. She bursts through
the wall, out of the room that they were in, into the corridor where they are now, noting that she has enough readings from that area and requires help to proceed.
Well, she says it's now Kirk's time to assist her. However, he, as I mentioned, goes all Obi-Wan and simply states that Decker can assist her better, and so she walks off with him, and he has the task of pumping her for information.
Yeah, I think Kirk just has to hope that Decker understands his remit.
It's not just to bang her.
Spock notes a level of concern.
Rightly so. When are we going to talk about Decker and the actor that...
At the end, probably.
Okay, right. Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Okay. Brief, but interesting.
Captain's log 7414.1.
Best estimates place them 4 hours from Earth, but no significant progress in reviving the Ilea memory patterns within the probe.
We head to the rec room. Decker is showing off pictures of spacecrafts, with Kirk, Spock and McCoy watching on via a TV, a viewer.
Yes, in Kirk's quarters.
Mm-hmm.
He shows her a chess set, which it doesn't recognise, or at least it doesn't recognise the concept of recreation and enjoyment.
Yep. She's not interested in any of these games until she places her hand on one that used to be a favourite of Ilea.
Yes, and memories stir.
Yeah, something clearly registers, but she fights to control herself before turning and walking off. So I think she realises that she shouldn't be having these stirrings.
McCoy is pleased that Decker is using audio-visual association, and we see more of the probe and Decker talking about carbon units.
Yeah, she asks about the purpose of these units and shocks Decker when she reveals that the intent is to reduce them all to memory patterns for data storage.
Decker is naturally perturbed by this and notes that the Ilea probe will have memory patterns stored inside her that it may be useful to try and access, and she agrees to try.
Yeah, she's very easily persuaded.
Obi-Wan moment there, yeah. Meanwhile,
Decker's got to be like, do you know what else we do? Everyone does this here.
For memory.
For memory. What is it? Well, if you just go on your... that seems logical. Right, turn off the viewer for
a few seconds, yeah.
A few seconds, okay.
Oh, for Decker.
Sure.
Spock has wandered off on his own now.
Yeah, we see him, he's down at the dock.
Yeah.
That's where Deckard normally would be.
He's gone a bit rogue, taking out a technician with a nerve pinch.
Yeah. And we quickly head back up to Ilya's quarters. Chapel and McCoy have joined them, and the probe is now wearing a headband of hers, which has helped to stir more memories. And she recognises Chapel and touches Deckard's face as she calls him Will.
Does she?
She does, yeah. She remembers who he is.
Deckard tries to remind her of her home planet, Delta.
He's getting right into this now. He's been touched by her and thinking, and
McCoy has to give him a bit of a thump to regain his focus.
Yeah, I mean, it's at this point he's thinking to himself, I want to mate with a machine.
Yes, but McCoy does manage to get him back to the present moment where he asks the probe to help them contact V'ger or to identify the creator, but there's no useful information forthcoming.
Perhaps sensing that she has said too much or has got too involved, she turns and takes off the headband at this point. And we head back out to, we're now in space.
There's a dramatic twist. Spock's running away in a jetpack, recording a message for Kirk.
Yeah, he's in a little thruster suit. What's he trying to do here?
He is going through the orifice.
What direction? Further, deeper into
Deeper
it?
in.
Yeah. I think it's to find out how long. I don't know what his plan is.
Well, he tells you what his plan is.
Yeah, no, but I didn't really understand what he was
He's attempting to contact the aliens, but he's going to calculate thruster ignition and acceleration rates to coincide with the opening of the orifice.
Grow up. But for what? I don't understand what, because
it should facilitate a better view of the interior of the alien spacecraft. That's what he says.
Yeah, but all these calculations, what's that?
Because the orifice is opening and closing.
Yeah, but he's in a thruster suit. That wouldn't be the same for the Enterprise.
Well, I think it's only got limited manoeuvrability. He's going to fly himself through it.
Yeah, but why does the rest of them need to know this then?
He's just telling them what he's doing.
Oh, okay, I don't know what he's up to.
He's off towards the orifice now, and up on the bridge, Uhura is receiving stronger signals from Starfleet as they approach Earth.
But at this point, Chekhov lets Kirk know what Spock is up to, and he decides eventually to trust him and instead asks for a fix on his position as opposed to trying to retrieve him.
Yes, outside, Spock successfully scoots through the orifice and records another message.
I have successfully penetrated the next chamber of the alien's interior, and I'm witnessing some sort of dimensional image which I believe to be a representation of V'ger's home planet. I'm passing through a connecting tunnel, apparently a kind of plasma energy conduit, possibly a field coil for a gigantic imaging system. Images of planets, moons, stars, whole galaxies all stored here, recorded. It could be a representation of V'ger's entire journey. But who or what are we dealing with? The Epsilon 9 station, stored here with every detail. I am now quite convinced that all of this is V'ger, that we are inside a living machine. Ilya. The sensor must contain some special meaning. I must try to mind meld with it.
Interesting music.
Yeah, I didn't dislike it.
No, it was good. Spock does indeed, at this point, try to mind meld, but this seems to cause him significant pain, and we next see him unconscious, having been ejected through the orifice and heading towards the Enterprise, where Kirk, with his own little jetpack, comes to rescue him.
Up in sickbay, the now motionless Spock lies with his eyes wide open, surrounded by Chapel and McCoy and Kirk.
We're told there are some indications of neurological trauma, but Spock wakes up anyway.
Yes. He starts to giggle and confirms to Kirk that V'ger is indeed a life form of its own and is populated by living machines of unbelievable technology.
Yeah, he calls Kirk Jim, at this point as
Does
well.
it?
Yeah,
Oh,
which
okay.
kind of breaks his icy veneer.
Sure.
So V'ger is a conscious living entity, but it also considers the Enterprise to be a living entity because that's its frame of reference.
Yeah. He claims that it has incredible knowledge but is cold and without beauty. And he starts to say that he should have known something before passing out to the frustration of Kirk.
Yes, and Uhura comes on for Kirk, saying that Starfleet notes the cloud is dissipating rapidly on approach to Earth, and Sulu confirms they're now travelling at sub-light speed, 3 minutes away from Earth orbit.
Yeah, just before that, I think, again, it's McCoy's advice. Kirk stirs him. He gives Spock a shake, and they embrace. Spock explains that this is the type of feeling that cannot be fathomed by V'ger.
Yeah, he's all emotional. Chapel, at Kirk's insistence, wakes Spock with a 5cc shot of dalaphyline.
Is it?
So that Spock can accompany Kirk to the bridge. Where we now go.
On the screen, they see that V'ger is transmitting a signal, and Ilia says that it is to the Creator.
Spock says it's just a basic radio wave, and Ilia notes her disappointment that the Creator hasn't responded. She reports that as there is no response, they are going to remove the carbon infestation from the planet. And Kirk asks why.
All carbon units have to be removed as they infest and interfere with the Creator in the same way that they do with the Enterprise.
Kirk tries to explain that these carbon life forms are not an infestation but natural life. However, the probe can't conceive of anything other than life in its own image.
Now, at this point, Spock calls them over for a confab and explains that V'ger is effectively a child and should be treated as such. I think Decker, Collins, is up for a bit of that.
Well, McCoy asks at this point, as we heard at the top of the show, whether Spock wants it to be spanked.
Again, Decker stroke Collins is like, yep, I'll do it.
Spock points out that it knows it needs something, but not what it needs.
It's all a bit philosophical mumbo-jumbo.
Yeah, so Kirk goes all Kirk and tries a gambit.
What's that?
He tells the Ilia probe that they know why the Creator's not responded, but they're not telling them.
Yeah, we've mentioned here that there's devices above the...
Yeah, the weapons that destroyed the Klingons and the other space station are going to be deployed around Earth.
Yeah, and he won't tell them until these have been removed.
Yes. So the probe says no, and Kirk then orders that everyone secures their station and leaves the bridge.
And at this, they come under another attack, which is described by McCoy as the child having a tantrum. Ilia again demands the information, but Kirk is resolute and orders the bridge to be cleared this time, banking on the Enterprise not being destroyed as it holds the information that V'ger wants.
The probe presses him again, saying it's illogical to withhold the information, but he responds that he won't share it while V'ger is intent on destroying life on Earth.
Yeah, I think we see her sort of... she's got a softer tone now.
Yeah, she says that the people on Earth are repressing the Creator, but Kirk insists once again that these orbiting devices are withdrawn.
And at this point, I think he tells her that he will only give the information to...
No, before that, she agrees to do this, and McCoy praises the ability to learn.
Right.
Before Spock notes that there must be a central processing centre, which causes Kirk to adapt his plan.
Yes, and his plan is that he wants to meet with V'ger directly. He's the only person that he will speak to, or it is the only thing that he will speak to.
Yes. They're now caught in a tractor beam, and Kirk orders everyone to resume their stations before noting to Decker that his bluff has been called. Decker notes that their hand seems weak.
Chekhov tells them that the devices will be in... These are the devices over Earth.
You've not got a joke about Decker liking weak hands?
No. Chekhov tells them that the devices over Earth will be in final position in 27 minutes, and then notes that an oxygen gravity envelope has been developed outside around the Enterprise.
Kirk calls down to Scotty, telling him to be ready to execute Starfleet Order 2005 and to do so on his command.
They stop in front of a shining light in the distance, which Ilia points to and calls V'ger.
So just before that, Scotty has a conversation with an engineer who asks why the captain's ordered a self-destruct, and Scotty suggests it's because if they have to go, they might as well take out this intruder with them when they do. And he assures the engineer that that's the likely outcome of any such explosion. And Chekhov gives an update. They're 18 minutes from destruction of Earth, and DeFalco tells him they're 17 kilometres inside the vessel. Spock at this point has his back to the others, and when he turns around, they see he's crying.
I don't think this was in the version I watched.
Okay. He explains that he weeps for V'ger as a brother.
No, I definitely didn't. I don't have this scene.
Okay. And he sees himself and V'ger empty, incomplete, and searching for something, realising that logic and knowledge are not enough. He explains that V'ger is looking to its creator for answers, and they slow to a stop as Spock determines they're at their destination, and at this point, Chekhov reports the envelope in the gravity pocket.
Ah, okay. That's a fairly substantial cut there, yeah.
Okay. So, yes, as you then said, the Alea probe notes this is V'ger, and Uhura says the radio signal is coming from straight ahead.
Alea turns and demands the information once more as everyone looks at Kirk for a response. But he simply heads to the turbo lift, telling McCoy and Spock to come with him and for Decker to remain in charge.
But Decker asks if he can come too, which leaves Sulu in charge.
We then have an exterior shot on the Enterprise.
Yes, there's some weird walkway ahead of them.
There's a hatch on top of the, whatever that part's called.
On the hull.
Yeah, in the hull. And there's a plasma electrical storm going on in the background as they're bumped up against a path of hexagonal rocks.
Which must have been based on the Giant's Causeway.
Yes, looks like it, yeah. And it leads to V'ger.
So they make their way across.
They follow Alea.
Well, we'll skip ahead.
Yeah.
And after some examination, Kirk discovers who V'ger is.
What do they find there in the centre of this thing?
It's a little probe.
A satellite.
It's called Voyager 6. It's just a bit dirty.
Yeah, well, that's the big reveal, isn't it? She points to it, and then Kirk notices. He wipes away the rest of the nameplate, and we see Voyager.
Decker recalls what Voyager 6 was. It's a NASA device from over 300 years earlier, which had a mission to collect data and return to Earth, but was lost when it fell into a black hole.
Yeah, it started to light up at that point. And so Kirk and Spock start to piece together exactly what has happened.
It must have emerged on the far side of the galaxy and fell into the machine planet's gravitational field.
The machine inhabitants found it to be one of their own kind. Primitive, yet kindred. They discovered its simple 20th century programming. Collect all data possible.
Learn all that is learnable. Return that information to its creator.
Precisely, Mr. Decker. The machines interpreted it literally. They built this entire vessel so that Voyager could actually fulfill its programming.
And on its journey back, it amassed so much knowledge. It achieved consciousness itself. It became a living thing.
So the Alea probe at this point says that V'ger wants the information it was promised, and Kirk asks the Enterprise to send any data it has on Voyager 6, including the old NASA code signal that instructs the probe to transmit its data.
Decker works out that is what it has been signalling, that it is ready to transmit its information, but of course, no one on Earth is now capable or able to recognise and respond to this.
Yes, and McCoy notes that's why the creator does not answer.
Kirk tries to speak to it and tells it that they are the creators, but this is dismissed by Alea, and he tells her that he can prove it by allowing them to complete their programming.
Yes, Uhura now has the response code which is transmitted to Decker, but when he tries to implement it, no data is transmitted.
Yeah, there's a problem. What is it?
It's sabotaged itself.
Yes.
Stop the data being transmitted.
Broken wires.
Alea probe insists that the creator must join with V'ger, and it's forcing that to happen by destroying its own wires.
Yeah.
McCoy thinks that V'ger's in for a bit of a disappointment if it thinks it's going to capture God in this way.
But Spock thinks maybe not. V'ger must evolve, and it requires its creator to answer one question.
Yes, can it go beyond logic? Is there more?
Is there nothing more? However, things like other dimensions and higher beings can't be proven with logic, and so V'ger can't believe in them. However, Kirk claims that V'ger needs a human quality, something beyond logic.
McCoy's aghast at the idea of V'ger physically merging with a human.
Yeah, it's well, of course you would be man in the machine or woman in the machine or whatever, I don't know.
This is the craziest sex robot yet.
Yeah, Deckard now gets the chance to shine like a true pervert and physically join with V'ger. He leaps over to the machine and
inserts his penis.
Yes, Ilia prevents others from trying to stop him as he tries to fix the wires with his bits and bobs.
He says that he wants this as much as Kirk wanted the Enterprise. Where's this come from? He now wants to merge with a machine. That's what he's always wanted.
He's just one of these massive. It's like you get these people who like marry the Eiffel Tower and things like that, and
dead pirate ghosts and things. Yeah.
So
he enters this code, and he and the Alia probe are enveloped in a fiery cloud as the others head back to the Enterprise.
Yeah, pretty much so. It's fairly dramatic.
Yeah. Back on the bridge, Sulu acknowledges that Kirk is back, and he asks Spock if they saw the beginning of a new life form.
Yeah, McCoy jokes that it's been a long time since he delivered a baby and hopes that they got this one off to a good start.
I think we gave it the ability to create its own sense of purpose out of our own human weaknesses and the drive that compels us to overcome them. And a lot of foolish human emotions, right, Mr. Spock?
Quite true, Doctor. Unfortunately, it will have to deal with them as well.
Interrogative from Starfleet. They're requesting damage and injury reports and complete vessel status.
Report 2 casualties. Lieutenant Ilia. Captain Decker.
Aye, sir.
Correction. They're not casualties. They are... List them as missing. Vessel status, fully operational.
Aye, sir.
Mr. Scott, shall we give the Enterprise a proper shakedown?
I would say it's time for that, sir. Aye. We can have you back on Vulcan in 4 days, Mr. Spock.
Unnecessary, Mr. Scott. My task on Vulcan is completed.
Mr. Sulu, ahead warp 1.
Warp 1, sir.
Heading, sir?
Out there. That-a-way.
Did they just steal the ship?
What ship?
The Enterprise. The mission's finished.
Yeah, he's decided we've got to go on mission. Yeah,
we're heading off. Warp 1, let's go.
The ending, I must admit, I'm not really sure what's going on there about new babies and creations and life forms.
It's a life form that's part
but I don't
person,
know how would that
robot.
work. But that's one life form, and how do they replicate and breed? See, this is, I think one of the criticisms I have of this is it's just a little bit too pretentious.
Yeah.
They're trying to be more serious and have more meaning to it, or have make this something that's a depth or a bigger meaning, and rather than just having a fight with some Klingons.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit.
We get I think a caption comes up on the screen that says the human adventure is just beginning.
Yeah.
I think he's suggesting this is a way that we could evolve by merging with machines.
Maybe it's a minor criticism, but I think it's just a little bit too full of itself.
Okay, that covers my next question, which was, do you have overall impressions of the film?
Yeah, it was fine. It was
Any particular highlights? For me, it's Spock and his little jetpack.
I like that. Yeah, I like Kirk showing his feelings and his weaknesses. I thought that was.
You thought it didn't work.
Yeah, just I don't know. It was a little bit convoluted.
Uniforms
were pretty casual.
They were awful.
Apart from Ilia's, she pulled it off.
Literally. For her shower.
Yep.
How did you feel that the new characters meshed with the familiar ones?
Well, there was only 2 of them really.
Yeah. Oh well, Sunak.
Yeah.
He meshed with something.
Yeah, I mean, Ilia was effectively the guest star, wasn't she, this week? So that was fine.
Decker was like when you had a Commodore come on board and start annoying everybody.
Yeah, so it didn't feel particularly disjointed or out of place.
But you quite liked how Kirk was handled. What about Spock?
Spock was, I suppose, more of a caricature of his character. He played up on...
When you read the script, he doesn't seem as detached as he played it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they could have toned that down. And the rest of them, as mentioned, I thought they were just, they're turning up and phoning it in. Didn't really have much to do.
Yeah.
Just doing their usual sort of... McCoy was a bit grumpy. Uhura couldn't get through in comms, and Sulu about
Sulu was
what
driving.
you're driving. Yeah, and that was, Chekhov has a few lines, and Scotty, but I can't handle it, Captain. 70%.
All the greatest hits.
All the greatest hits, yeah. So, it was fine. It was fine.
Any other thoughts?
Not really, no.
You want some trivia?
Too long. That's my main criticism. It was
I like the special effects.
Special effects, as we said, were good for certainly for the time. It did not. It wasn't laughable. You could tell the money had been spent, and you could see the influence of the sci-fi boom that would have happened after Star Wars.
Okay, trivia.
Sure.
Cinematic release was December 1979, making it the first live-action Star Trek of your lifetime, but still a bit before mine.
Yeah, just a bit before.
Directed by Robert Wise, who most folk will have heard of, probably best known for his work on the original 1961 film of West Side Story and for The Sound of Music. He's a 4-time Oscar winner. He won Best Director and Best Picture for both of those films. He was also nominated for the Oscar for Best Picture in 1966 for The Sand Pebbles, and for Best Director in 1958 for I Want to Live, and he was the editor on 1941's Citizen Kane.
Wow, that's quite the CV.
Yeah.
It's actually very impressive that they got someone of that calibre for what was a bit of a sort of...
Absolutely. This was obviously his only Star Trek project, but yeah.
Maybe it was, obviously he's coming towards the end of his career at this point. Maybe it was a final a pension top-up.
Maybe. He died in 2005 when he was 91.
Okay, so not the end of his... I thought he'd have been older. I thought he'd have died before then.
No, he didn't.
He didn't? No, obviously good on him.
He was in his 60s when he did this.
Yeah, okay. Fair play to him.
Harold Livingston wrote the teleplay from a story by Alan Dean Foster, although there was some Roddenberry interference. Livingston was primarily a TV writer before this. This was his only Star Trek work. He'd written for shows like Mission Impossible, The $6 Million Man, and Future Cop. He famously actually had trouble with Gene Roddenberry during production. This film was one of his final credits, and he's now 97. Foster, meanwhile, has only one other screenwriting credit, but he's an acclaimed science fiction and fantasy novelist with over 20 books, including novelizations of the Star Trek, Star Wars, Alien, Transformers, and Terminator films.
All the big ones.
He's now 75. Persis Kambata played Lieutenant Ilea. She was nominated for a Saturn Award for her performance, but this was her only Star Trek role. She went on to appear on shows like MacGyver and The New Adventures of Superman, but missed out on the role of Octopussy in the Bond movie of the same name to Maud Adams.
I had only seen her once before, and I'll tell you what it was. I think it was probably her next movie after this.
Okay.
It was in a Sylvester Stallone, Billy D. Williams, and Rutger Hauer movie called Nighthawks.
Okay.
She played a baddie in it.
Did she have hair?
She did have hair, yeah. Okay. It was very good.
She actually sadly died in 1998 when she was only 49 after having a heart attack. Stephen Collins played Decker. This was his only Star Trek role, but he also appeared in films like The First Wives Club and Blood Diamond, as well as TV shows including It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia and Seventh Heaven.
Oh, an all-round good guy then, eh?
Yeah, but except for in 2014 when he admitted to inappropriate sexual conduct with 3 female minors in 1973, 1982 and 1994. Didn't learn his lesson from the first 2 of those, obviously.
It didn't, and let's not underplay it. When minors could be a technicality. It could be he was in his 20s and she was like 17 and the legal age was 18. It wasn't that. They were children. They were very young children, which he admitted to abusing.
Yes, but no criminal charges were brought. However, he's had no TV or film credits since making that admission.
Quite right.
He has been divorced since then, and he's now 74 years old.
Yeah. I mean, he played obviously, he was playing the part of a bit of a pervert in this episode, and
it fitted well.
Mm-hmm.
Famous familiar name, Mark Leonard, returned. He previously played Sarek in Journey to Babel and the Romulan commander in Balance of Terror. He was the Klingon captain here. You can hear more about him on the podcast for Balance of Terror. Marcy Lafferty played Chief DeFalco. At the time, she was married to William Shatner. That was the Enterprise officer that replaced
I recognised her. I knew that because she was in a few episodes of T.J. Hooker.
Well, as I'm about to tell you, she also appeared on shows like Hawaii Five-0, Barnaby Jones, and 4 episodes of T.J. Hooker, and she's now 75 years old. John Rashad Kamal played the ill-fated Lieutenant Commander Sonak. This was his only Star Trek role, but he also appeared in shows like Kojak, Murder, She Wrote, and Ellie Law, and he's now 86. A few minor Columbo connections. Jerry McBride played a technician in this and was a restaurant patron in Columbo Goes to College. John Hugh McKnight made an uncredited appearance as a crewman and also showed up as a club patron in Now You See Him. And Sally Stevens sang on the movie soundtrack and did likewise for the Bye Bye Sky High IQ murder.
There you go.
Finally, Bob Baralver did stunt work on this movie and for Columbo, and we talked about him back on the podcast for Is There in Truth No Beauty?
We did indeed.
There's also a near miss because the first choice to write the screenplay was Stephen Bochco.
Oh, yes.
He was approached but was unavailable.
He would have been good. Although I'm not sure if it would have been He's not really a sci-fi guy, is he?
Oh, who knows? He never got the chance to prove it. There's so much trivia for this movie. I've tried to pick out some highlights. James Doohan developed the rudimentary Vulcan and Klingon languages heard in this movie. Klingon has been fleshed out by others subsequently. Uhura's earpiece was the only original series prop that was used. It had to be found after nobody remembered to make a new one for the movie.
She did a different hairstyle as well.
She did. In the shot where Kirk addresses the entire crew, we touched on this during the film, but most of the extras are Star Trek fans, and the majority of them did not cash the checks they were paid for their appearances. They just kept them
suckers
as mementos. Persis Kambata was apparently very upset having to shave her head for the role and worried it would not grow back. But
did someone explain to her how hair works?
Well, there you go. Film is, as we said, set about 4 years after the end of the third season of the original series. Shatner, Kelly and Nimoy very unhappy with the way their characters were changed for this film, and everyone was unhappy with the uniforms.
Yeah.
Now, I'm lifting this one straight from IMDb without comment. Uhura warns Captain Kirk and the bridge crew that Ilia is a Deltan. This is in a deleted scene, because Deltans are highly sexually advanced beings. Ilia later states that her oath of celibacy is on record because no human could survive a sexual encounter with a Deltan. Deltans produce extremely strong pheromones which cause sexual arousal in those around them, and according to the novelisation of the movie, the reason Sulu stands up so awkwardly is because he has an erection. And this scene is featured in what is called the special longer version on the VHS release.
Well, that makes more sense with in terms of the celibacy clip, yeah.
The film was nominated for 3 Oscars, was considered a frontrunner for the soundtrack, but did not win any. Gene Roddenberry petitioned for a screenplay credit on the movie, having rewritten much of what he was presented by Harold Livingston. It said his behind-the-scenes actions in this film are why he was largely sidelined for the rest of the motion picture. He wasn't given a screenplay credit. I think he was given a story by credit and refused it.
Okay.
When there was concerns that Leonard Nimoy would not return to Star Trek, a replacement character called Lieutenant Zahn was created and cast with the actor David Gautreaux. That part ultimately never existed, but Gautreaux did play Branch in this film. And there's a podcast, Larry Nemechek's The Trek Files podcast, is a great extended interview with Gautreaux that covers this whole episode. It's quite interesting. Finally, William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy actually collaborated to ensure that Grace Lee Whitney was able to return in the role of Janice Rand, and used their influence to make sure she also returned in future films as well.
Oh, that's nice.
Next time, we're going to take a look at the second feature film, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. It features a returning adversary, but I won't spoil it by saying which one.
Good. I've heard of that, and obviously I've missed it twice with my Evening with William Shatner watch-along, which was cancelled because of all sorts of COVID nonsense.
This is your opportunity.
Yep.
So,
looking forward to it.
We'll see, folk. I don't know how long it'll be until that comes out, but hopefully sooner rather than later.
It'll be a week after I listen to this one.
I know, right. So until then,
cheerio.
Bye-bye.